Welcome to Wine Time Mysteries, where we talk about true crime, the paranormal, mysteries, and cryptozoology with a dash of comedy. This podcast contains adult themes and is intended for mature audiences only. Don't forget to click follow and tickle that little notification bell. Now, find a comfy spot. We're about to start today's episode.
This week, dear mung beans, I take you to the piece of shit.
Oh,
That is Elma. I don't like that name.
Elma
Crawford. Crawford. Elma. Yeah, I don't. I also want to mention, for this case, I did read a book. Look at me go. Hey, I read lots of books, thank you.
I read a book.
I read a book.
Surprise! That's the twist in this case. Fuck me. She can read. Among other things, and is really good and pretty short, and you should check it out. The book was actually really good. It's called Almost Perfect by Greg Fogarty. Elma Crawford was born in Hemingford, Quebec. In Canada?
Yeah.
Quebec.
Cubic
meter.
in Canada, sometime in May. He was born in Canada sometime.
Well, the one Canadian listener we do have is probably not going to love the A.
Oh, Canada.
Hockey.
Did you say hockey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hockey.
Yeah.
I would so date a hockey player.
Oh, yeah, I did date a hockey
He would
player.
was he from Canada?
No.
Well, mine would be. And he would get it every day.
Yeah.
Do you think Canadians are uncut or cut? Cut or uncut? I want them to be uncut.
I'm going to say uncut, but I have this little cut.
I think it'll be cut because it's like North America, right? It's the traditional done thing. But I thought when they kind of separated themselves from America, they'd also keep the foreskin.
Maybe later down the track.
I like a man with foreskin, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Have you got the foreskins over there?
Yeah.
Please tell me.
Hey, Canada, you got dick skin? Sorry, I'm on one.
We're just talking about Canada. Sometime in May 1930, so possibly a Taurus or Gemini, I'm not sure, but I know he's a piece of shit. Although not much is known of his childhood, relatives would say he was a quiet child and mostly a loner. By the age of 22, Elma would immigrate to Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, sorry, it's Australian.
Yeah.
Look, it says Canada right there.
It's fucking Canada right there
It is.
on the map.
It says Australia right there, and he moved over there, you know. Fucking over there. Melbourne, Australia. Fucking squish him.
Yeah, right there.
Dead now.
He's dead. Being a bit of a handyman, he would find work with the Victoria Racing Club, where he worked at their Flemington workshop as an unqualified telephone mechanic.
What?
Telephone mechanic.
Doing what?
Telephone.
What the fuck is a telephone mechanic? Does
don't
he
know.
work on telephones, or
Yeah.
you call him and he's a mechanic?
I don't know, it's the 50s, so...
So he works at a switchboard?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe fixed them, like if they went something... I don't fucking know.
Alright, sorry.
I don't fucking know what
I'm
it's at.
sorry for asking ya.
Yeah, I don't even know what the phones and that were like. I don't know, but he was unqualified, so whatever. In no time, he was earning $64 a week, which would have been just over,
In no time?
in no time, which would be just over $700 when he was promoted to an electrotator.
Electrotator.
He was electrotator when he was promoted to an electrician. I also want to mention that his salary was above average in 1952. He would also end up working another 2 jobs. One was collecting parking fees during race meets at the club on weeknights and weekends, and he was working as well as an unarmed security guard for Metropolitan Security Services. Is that your stomach?
I didn't feel it.
I don't know what that was.
It could have been, but I didn't feel it.
His co-workers would say he was diligent and a competent worker who was also friendly but somewhat reclusive. He would never share any details about his past with his co-workers, and even though some worked with Elma for 16 years, they soon realised they knew nothing of the man and what he was capable of. Dun dun. He would soon meet a woman.
A woman?
a woman.
They were around back then? It was allowed?
They were allowed.
Was she out in public?
He would soon meet a woman who would become his wife, Teresa, who was described as warm and welcoming. They purchased a block of land, building a shed first and living there. Fuck that. Whilst the house was being built, in which Elmer tried to do as much of it himself, as he was a bit of a tight ass when it came to money. Tight ass, good with money, potato, whatever you want to say.
So they lived in a shed in Australia?
Yeah.
Like,
so they bought a block of land, had a shed, lived in the shed while the house was being built.
the shed will have no insulation.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, summer, fuck me. It's going to be
me.
hot. Winter, fuck me. It's going to be cold.
Yeah, but Australia, so fuck me.
Fuck me.
In 1958, Elma and Teresa would welcome their first child, a girl, who they named Catherine. By 1962, they welcomed their second child, a son named James William. And only 2 years later, they welcomed their third child, Karen Jean.
William.
Fuck off! William.
I love it. No, I love it. And I pick up on it because I enjoy it. And that's why I was like, William.
Everything appeared as if they were a happy and normal family.
Hey.
As I said earlier, Teresa was super friendly and neighbours thought highly of her. Elmer would help neighbours if they had things that needed fixing. His tool shed was the envy of all the other men in the street.
Fucking.
I know, Australia. Oh, that's a
No.
nice bloody tool shed.
Stupid fucking men.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm envious of your tool shed.
Oh, look at that tool shed.
Look at those shiny clean tools.
Yeah, apparently it was all very, everything was kept in the right spot and it was filled with, lots of tools. It was even mentioned that the neighbourhood kids would go to him if they needed help, like a flat tyre with their bike or whatever. I went where?
Okay.
A flat tyre.
Tell me more.
Fuck me.
Like with the bike.
Fuck me.
Fuck me.
Oh, fuck me, million, William. It was even mentioned that the neighbourhood kids would go to him if they needed help with a flat tyre on their bike, whatever. He was described as friendly and approachable, but also a bit antisocial, never going to neighbourhood events. Because back then, neighbours actually hung out, even across the road neighbours, whereas
Ew.
now you don't even see your neighbours bring in their groceries.
No, but I fucking hear him.
A friend of Teresa knew a different Elmer to the one his co-workers and neighbours knew.
Did she get in his butts?
No, she didn't. One who would have sudden rage-fueled outbursts. Because that always goes well, you know? One time, his car wouldn't start. He started denting the vehicle with the tyre lever. So just smashing his car with the tyre lever. Unfortunately, Teresa did suffer from postnatal depression after having a difficult birth when she had Karen and had a bit of a breakdown. Elmer arranged for Teresa's parents to come to Melbourne to help with the kids, as the depression, which was not considered an illness in the 60s, was starting to make it difficult for her to even get up out of bed. After around 3 months, Teresa would start to get better, and Elma would end up demanding that they have no more children and that she go on contraception to avoid this breakdown happening again. How dare you have a mental breakdown, woman? I forbid you to have kids.
But also, I'm going to sound like a dick, but if that is the outcome of you having a child, for your safety and for your mental health, I would probably suggest that, we'd be happy with the child we have. We love the kid. We raise the kid with love. And if we really, really want another kid, we can adopt. But for your health, that's the angle that I see it at. Yeah. He's a shady cunt, so it's not necessarily that.
I was not his angle, but yes, I agree to that
But
part.
my angle would be...
Yeah, because by the sounds of it, it was difficult...
For him to deal with her?
Well, just her throughout her pregnancy as well as the labour, and it was just kind of a bad time from the get-go. I didn't mention earlier, but by the time they'd had all their kids, the Crawfords were pretty well off. Not only was his house paid for in full, but he also had 3 vacant lots of land in Queensland. The car was paid in full, and so was his scooter. He had a little toot-toot as well. And he was said to have had around $7,000 in various bank accounts. That would be like 70,000 nowadays, so they had a bit of money. Now, this money wasn't just from all his jobs that he had. Wasn't all of that. He was also a bit shady, like selling tools, clothing and electrical gear, and even oil for cash. You know, the old fell off the back of the truck wank.
So he was stealing
of the shady.
Well, was he stealing and selling, or was he selling on behalf of someone who was stealing?
Well, they didn't actually go into detail. They just said a lot of the local pawn shops knew him to come in selling a lot of stuff. That was just a bit too much of...
It doesn't really... I'm asking for pointless information at this stage anyway, which I don't need, because it doesn't matter. They're still both bad. Anyway, sorry, continue.
He even stole electrical cable from his work to sell, and when he went to his job as a parking attendant, he would skim some money off the top. It's not known if Teresa was aware of it or if she just turned a blind eye. 30th of June 1970, Jennifer Carter, one of the Crawfords' neighbours, decided to see the family. As she made her way to the house, she saw Elmer pulling out of the driveway, his car crammed full of garbage, and was on his way to the dump. This was a little odd as Elmer had just finished his holidays and should now be back at work. Jennifer asked Teresa if Elmer would be heading back to work soon, to which she replied, "I thought he would be returning soon." So, like, she didn't even seem to be like, "Oh, why aren't you back at work?" You know?
So one thought that he was already supposed to be back, and the other one was like, "Oh, yeah, I thought he's soon.
Why your man not at work?" She explained he had been so busy cleaning up the house and going to the dump, almost in a manic kind of state. Oh, and surprisingly at this time, Teresa was now pregnant with her 4th child and would be due in January 1971. Maybe not taking her contraception pills? Who can say? 1st of July, at around 10:30 a.m, a woman named Jane Watson, an Avon representative, visited one of her clients, Elma Crawford. They enjoyed each other's company and would have some tea and a chat. Today was a bit different, however. Karen was sulking due to a toothache, and Teresa was short in her replies. She even refused a catalogue, and she had never done that before. She loved her Avon catalogue, she did.
Oh, Avon's so trash.
Avon calling! Around this time, Elmer started walking down the driveway to his car and was working inside of it, returning to the trunk and the back of the vehicle. June noticed he had also removed the back seat of the car.
Red flag.
Red flag. She soon left after realising that maybe now wasn't a good time. I mean, never is a good time for door knocking unless you want people to talk to. But don't knock on my door. Gross.
Don't touch my
You know
door.
what I really hate? I've got a do not knock and people still knock. The funny thing is that Elmer was meant to be back at work on this day. He hadn't shown up for work, so one of his co-workers thought he would pop over and see what was up and thought maybe Elmer had gotten his dates wrong.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
I know.
If I didn't come to work one day and showed up on my door...
Ew. He pulled up to their house around 1:30 p.m, no car in the driveway, and the place seemed quiet. He knocked and waited for a little before leaving and heading back to work. At 7:30 p.m, a man parked his car and started heading towards the church, which I think was kind of next door to the house, or whether the parking lot was a little bit further away, but I don't know. It sounded like it was close to. Anyway, heading towards the church next door to the Crawfords' house. He noticed the FB Holden was parked near the house's front gate. He thought it was odd as he'd never seen the car parked there, and apparently Elmer was pretty particular with things, so it was out of the ordinary. Needing to run an errand a few moments later, he noticed the vehicle had been moved and was now facing boot to garage.
Ooh, for easy packing.
Mm-hmm. Teresa and the kids settled in for the night, and Elmer continued working in his garage. Teresa wrote a letter to her oldest sister about how she was unhappy with being pregnant and how Elmer and her were fighting and it was too late to do anything with the baby. She was yet to finish the letter when Elmer walked through the door. Standing directly behind her, he smashed a thick piece of rubber hose filled with lead down onto her head. So not meant to rhyme. Okay, gross. Dragging her by her arms, lifting her on the double bed of the main bedroom, he attached an alligator clip to her right earlobe and another to the flesh between the thumb and the index finger on her right hand.
He electrocuted her.
He was plugging the other end into the wall socket. He made his own little frickin' electrocution system.
And he was working on that in his shed?
I think so. 240 volts of electricity blasted through Teresa. She would have burns on her hand and ear, yellow-brown welts on her neck and down her arm. Now, usually something like this, you might think, oh, what about the fuse box, and possible short-circuiting? This motherfucker replaced 2 fuses in the box, ensuring the power would stay on so that he could do this. Teresa and her baby, she was just 3 months along at the time, would pass away. Next, he headed to his daughter's room. The 2 girls shared a bedroom and were already asleep. Approaching his eldest daughter, 12-year-old Catherine, he raised a hammer high and brought it down with as much force as possible. She thrashed around on the bed as he struck her again in the center of her forehead, shattering her skull. The attack was so vicious, she had bone fragments pushed deep into her brain, and he even had to twist the hammer out from her head. Unsure if she was dead, he attached the same device he had used on his wife, once again to her hand and her earlobe, and plugged it in. As she was already dead, the electricity just burnt through her body. Now, the gentleman that I mentioned earlier that had parked his car near the home and was taking another break around 8 p.m. with some of the churchies, they could hear a commotion and thought it was a bit strange. So while all of this was going down, Elmer walked over to his 6-year-old daughter, Karen, who was still asleep. He forcefully struck her on the right side of her forehead, shattering her skull, and she died instantly. Elmer decided not to use the same device on his youngest, as he could see her brain and knew she was definitely dead. Whilst wrapping the girls' bodies up in some bedding sheets and blankets, he noticed his 8-year-old son, James, was walking towards his parents' bedroom. He had woken up to the noises and was obviously a bit frightened. Before he could even see the horror that was unfolding, Elmer ran up behind him and smashed the hammer to the side of James's head. He attached the clamps to his ears and hands and ensured his son was definitely gone. Wrapping his wife and kids up in the blankets, he dragged their bodies through the house, outside, into the garage, where he placed them inside the car, right where the back seat used to be. Those same churchies could hear this going on and said it sounded like something being dragged, but they didn't do anything. Because I guess also, it's kind of that, it sounds like something heavy's being dragged, but can't just assume.
Do you know what, though? Maybe you should assume.
Yeah.
Maybe you should assume, and maybe you could go over there and stop at least one of them from dying.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, they heard the commotion as well, and they're like, oh, that's a bit weird. Maybe investigate, or call someone to investigate. Elmer put more bedding over the bodies and put a tarp over the top. He then added several plastic containers filled with gasoline. Earlier that day, he had also placed his scooter in the boot, or the trunk, if you're a weirdo.
Like if you're American.
American.
Or Canadian.
Or Canadian.
Are you Canadian, eh? Are you?
So, yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
Canadian. Wow.
Parkour.
Hey. Parkour. Parkour.
I like that. Yeah.
Do you like my loom, eh?
Eh?
What is that about?
Eh?
Eh? Snow, maple, hockey. Eh?
I fucking love
Sorry,
it.
Canada.
On July 2nd, 1970, some tourists were out visiting Lockard Gorge. I keep saying
Where?
Lockard.
Lockard Gorge.
Yeah, because I keep trying to say George. On July 2nd, 1970, some tourists were out visiting Lockard... Fucking George! On July 2nd, 1970, some tourists were out visiting Lockard Gorge, which was a 4.5-hour drive from Melbourne. I said gorge and not George. It was weird because they noticed a car was balancing on a ledge, just a few feet above the ocean. They also saw a black rubber hose running from the exhaust pipe to the driver's side window, as they had binoculars on them at the time. Police would arrive after being notified and sent a rescue squad down to inspect the vehicle before they ran out of daylight, as they were unsure if the car might tip into the ocean. Several items were recovered from the vehicle, including a .22 caliber rifle and his homemade shock device, along with some photographs and personal belongings. The plates were run and they found the vehicle had belonged to Elma Crawford, obviously. The police attempted to contact Elma as they were not sure at this time if he knew the car had been stolen or if something was at play. Because the way the gorge was, it was literally the car has been pushed over the ledge. So it's gone over the ledge. They were yet to discover the bodies in the car, but could smell something, maybe the smell of death. But as it was reaching nightfall and they couldn't risk it for the biscuit, with how the car was positioned, it just wasn't an option for them to explore further. Knocking on Elma's front door, to which they got no answer, they would leave and later return with orders of break in if you must. Obviously, after a few attempts at knocking, they would enter the home where they would make a gruesome and blood-soaked discovery/crime scene. In the house, they had found some cleaning products as if someone had started cleaning up the mess. In the kitchen, they found some handwritten notes, one titled Next of Kin and was addressed to Jean Crawford and Tammy Martin. Another to the milkman stating no further deliveries. There was heaps of, you really need to read the book if you want to, but you probably won't, but there's heaps of stuff they found, even like a woman's wig and like clothing, like it was weird shit in the house as well, where I'm like, did he dress up as a woman to try and make it, I don't know. Friday morning on the 3rd of July, the recovery of the vehicle was in full swing. After ensuring it was fully secured, a search started. One of the men noticed some feet sticking out from some bedding material underneath the tarp he had just lifted. They made the gruesome discovery of Teresa and her children. Elma was nowhere to be found. I hate to say it, but 52 years later, Elma Crawford, who most likely is dead by now, as he'd be around 92 years old, has never been found. So no charge on this horrific murder. Crazy.
But obviously
right?
quite evidently him.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
So we also don't know why he did it.
Perfect segue. The police assumed he had found out about the 4th pregnancy and maybe a fight broke out, and for some reason he decided the best option would be to kill his entire family. Like, that's all they could kind of base things off. They believed he had planned this very well. So there was a lot of, like, I think they also found, like, abortion pamphlets and stuff like that as well. And it was said that Teresa was, like, a Christian. So even taking contraception was a bit of a, so...
Frowned upon
yeah.
religion. I guess, because I thought in his mind, he didn't want to have another child, so he needed to kill her because it was too late for her to actually go get an abortion. But when she dies, obviously the fetus dies, but then the kids require care. So maybe that's where his mind went. But, I mean, also he probably could have just abandoned them and they would have ended up, like, in foster care.
Well, what he'd actually done, so he took, because he had the scooter in the back, wherever he pulled up in this gorge, there was, like, a trench, and he had to fill in this trench with rocks. And, like, I'll show you.
To get the scooter up?
No, to get the car over it. It would have taken him like an hour more than that to like fill in this thing, which I don't know why he didn't go to another spot. Push the car over the edge. He put the fuel in there thinking it would just go kaboom and then he could go, oh no, my family left me. And, you know, because he was cleaning up the mess. So they also think when the police were knocking the first time, he was actually home and cleaning the shit up, because they had neighbours go across there and found that his scooter was there.
So do you think that maybe he bailed after they went there the first time, which is why he
To be like,
didn't
oh,
finish
fuck.
the cleaning? He was like, I need to get out because they're already on to me.
I think so.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very, like, they think fully planned really well because, but like, the only thing, he would have lost all his money as well. So like his block of lands, he had 70 grand pretty much in the bank.
Do we know if that money was ever taken out? Was it removed? It stayed in the bank.
So it was never touched. He just disappeared. There are a few things that have come up, like pretty recent as well. They believed a man in Texas may have been Crawford, as they found someone who had gone to great lengths to conceal his actual identity. They had found multiple false documents in at least 4 different names, and the guy had even gone as far as damaging his fingerprints. Unfortunately, DNA testing would reveal that it was not him. You are not the father.
I mean, some other judge, you can't, just not this one.
The strongest lead they have is that he moved to Western Australia. Because where you want to hide? Fucking in the outback.
Yeah, it's so big you can't find anyone.
Uh-huh.
I wonder, do you reckon he could have even have moved back to Canada?
Yeah, he could have. Yeah, definitely. A woman who knew Crawford saw a man in a Bunbury hotel in Western Australia, and she was convinced it was Elma. She approached him, but he claimed he was a tourist from NZ. And apparently she didn't tell the police until like a couple of weeks later as well, so by then it would have been...
What's the point of even telling anyone?
Yeah, exactly. Police are still actively wanting information and any possible clues that may help solve the case. And that, dear mung beans, is the piece of absolute shit. I hope he is dead now, which he probably is. Elma Carl Crawford.
I really hate people, but mostly when there's no closure, but there's also no explanation provided for why these things happen. There's a theory, but that's a theory until, like, unless you find a journal that was written by him where he said, I decided to do this because of this. It's like, it's not necessarily the reason. It makes logical sense. Like, it's not logical. Don't think it's logical to kill your entire family because you don't want to have another child. But it, like, the reasoning that they came up with for that theory would kind of...
Yeah. But I mean, like, not to abandon your family, but you also could have just abandoned your family.
Yeah.
Instead of killing them.
Yeah, you could have literally just left your wife with the kids and bailed. Because you didn't get to keep your money anyway, nor did you get to keep your house that you had built, or the land that you owned, or the properties. Like, it doesn't make sense. And I think that confuses me more.
But yeah, piece of shit. You're fucking welcome. Thanks for joining. Well, thanks.
All right.
See you later.
Goodbye.